Wow. Hello, check, check. Wow. Hello, check, check. Got it. Okay, cool. So, we're going to move this over here. I had an idea where I would basically do a live stream and walk through my kind of video guide or overview for a YouTube video that I'm planning on filming, because just to kind of see the flow, kind of walk through everything and just see, how it goes and what I might miss, and then I can kind of look back on it and maybe elaborate on some things, figure out what doesn't flow right, etc. Something like that. So I'm just going to try it. And my next video I'm doing is called How to Not End Your Time on the Earth Prematurely, which I know YouTube is super strict about that category and the words surrounding that, unaliving yourself or whatever. But it's basically this concept that I came up with, in a framework I have to manage my mental health, because I've had some struggles in the past. So anyways, I'm just gonna kind of go through the whole thing. So I've had a very good life. I've been extremely fortunate and privileged, and for the most part things have been really good, relative to probably your average person. But regardless of that, even I still wanted to tap out, for lack of a better term, multiple times in my early 20s, and I really had a struggle with it. And the thing is, there was some hard things at that time in my life, and I had some things that weren't exactly going right and that were causing me stress and whatever, but it wasn't enough to want to be done living, basically. So I'll have more on that later, but the point is that it was a mystery to me. I was like, why am I so depressed? Why am I fed up with life? I was just really upset and didn't really know why, and it was a mystery. And I just want to share the way that I made it out of that, because I'm going to do a blog post where it'll be in the description eventually, but I'm going to put in some journal entries that I had during that time when I wanted to frickin' end it. So you could go look at those if you want. I'll spare you on here, but it's I'm happy to say now that I haven't had those struggles in a long time, and it's thanks to this kind of mental framework that I want to share. So the first thing that I want to say, though, before I really get into it, is that mental health is obviously, everyone has a different journey with it, and if you struggle with it, there's a million reasons why. And I know a percentage of people just literally have something wrong with their brain that no behavior is necessarily going to change. No, it's like a serious chemical imbalance that either needs medication or really special treatment or something. And I acknowledge that there's a percentage of people that struggle, and that's why, and that this isn't going to necessarily be that applicable to those kind of people. But my suspicion is that a lot of the mental illness and mental health struggles we see today are a result of different factors that we actually have control over, and there's stuff you can do to mitigate and change them. And that's what I found for myself, and so I just want to, go through that. So the concept is my 4 pillars of mental health, right? And I think of my overall mental health as like a ceiling that is held up by and supported by 4 pillars. Each of the pillars is tied to the next pillar in the sense that they kind of affect each other. So, one change to one can put extra stress on the other, and they're working in tandem. It's not a closed system, right? It's different things affect each pillar. And also I want to acknowledge everyone is different, right? So some people may have different pillars. Some people live their entire life and don't have to worry about any of this stuff and they just go through life and it's fine. Some people, their house collapses and they never recover, right? So everyone's a little different, but the way I came to this was that I would notice if I was getting in a headspace that was really negative, downward spiral, really getting depressed, really not wanting to be alive, etc. I would ask myself, I'm like, is one of these pillars off? And 99% of the time, I was feeling horrible or having an issue mentally. One of those was off. The answer was yes, one is off. So once I kind of clocked that, I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to start thinking about this. And this is just what works for me. So it's worked for me really well, and that's why I just want to share it if it could maybe work for you. So I'm going to get into the 4 pillars and the structure and everything. So the first thing is your foundation, which is basically your why. It's like why you need a why to live. Obviously, right? It's like what's even the point of keeping your pillars up if you don't have a why? For a lot of people, this is God or some kind of religious imperative, right? Some kind of spiritual thing, some kind of religious thing. That's very common. A lot of other people, it's just their family or loved ones, making a better life for them or their family or loved ones. For a lot of people too, it can literally, even though I wouldn't recommend it, it can just be pure hedonism. Like you just want to have a good time. You want to enjoy your life. You want to be happy, etc. And for me, it's basically this like desire to inspire the world and like leave my mark and leave the world better than I found it and have a legacy that outlives me. And a lot of times that's what gets me through and gets me up in the morning. And this discovery of your why or your purpose or building your foundation is something that I'm not going to get into too much here. It's something you have to do for yourself. I will link an article that I've written about dreaming and thinking about purpose and what's the point. If you are someone who needs to go deeper there. But with that being said, I'm going to go to pillar 1, which is your mindset and mental habits, basically. So in essence, you are your mind, right? The way you think and the way you talk to yourself is one of the strongest levers you have to change your life. And it makes sense to pay attention to your mental talk and your habits in this regard. And this is one thing when I was younger, I didn't notice. Like I had so much negativity and negative self-talk and all these things. And it can just, in the same as physical habits, like it can just completely derail your life and take you down paths you don't want to go. And I like this example of this study they did on stress where they took a bunch of people and measured them over time. And some of the people had beliefs that stress was bad for them and negative. And then other people believed that it was good for them. It made them stronger. It made them more focused. It had a positive effect on them. And when they looked at these people's health outcomes over time, the people who believed that stress was actually good for them and made them better had better health outcomes, right? This is just one example of how your mental outlook can affect your actual outcome. And another article I've written on this is Ready, Mindset, Go, and it's been my kind of little playbook of how to turn negatives into positives and how to build mental habits of when something's bad, there's almost always a silver lining or something positive you can find in it. And it's really just a choice and a habit to start doing that. The bad things are going to happen regardless. How you react to it makes a huge difference. And if you're in a constant habit of when something bad happens, oh, woe is me, or I suck, or why does this happen to me, or blah, 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 even though all those things could be true, it just makes things way worse. And this is just a massive thing that I used to not pay attention to that as I've started working on and changing over the years has really, really helped me. I'm going to get into it later, but one tip here I would say is I learned this technique in therapy where when you have mental thoughts, rather than people tend to just think of it as truth, right? You have a thought, oh, that sucks, or oh, I'm bad, or oh, this is horrible, or oh, that would happen, or whatever. You can view those thoughts rather than like truth. You can just almost view it like words on a screen, and you can say, is that helpful for me? Do I need to think that? Is that even true, etc.? Once you start thinking of your natural thoughts that occur in that way, rather than just letting it kind of taking it as truth, which is, I would argue, the default for people, it can change a lot of things, because you can kind of start throwing stuff away and noticing it, rather than just going with it. And yeah, the other thing that really helps with this, which is probably the most important thing that I could recommend in this whole video, and maybe even for your life, is a mindfulness practice. And getting in, just even trying it, can go have such a positive impact. It's really crazy when you start to just pay attention to your mind and what's flowing up into your mind and how you react to it, and just the nature of your mind and what goes on in there gives you so much power over an ability to swerve and change. And I think, again, a huge percentage of people they're not even thinking about it, right? They're not even paying attention to what their thoughts are and how their thoughts are and what mental habits they have and all these things. I personally use Sam Harris's Waking Up app, and it's amazing. And there will be a link for a free month in the description. It's not sponsored or anything. And if you can't afford it, you can literally email support and say, hey, I can't afford this, and they will give it to you for free. So there's really no excuse to not try it or use it. And there's a million resources on there for learning about the mind, different practices, infinite stuff. But it's a rabbit hole I can't recommend more going down if you're not having fun in your head. If you're like me and it's a struggle and it's a battle in there a lot of times, it's like going to the gym for your mind, and it's so important, and everything kind of flows from it. So it's really a good starting part, is getting to know yourself, getting to know how your mind works, your mindset, your mental habits. That's pillar one. That is one thing where if I'm tripping and then I start to think and I start to pay attention to what thoughts I'm having and what thoughts I'm letting take my attention and taking them as truth, a lot of times if I'm having a bad time, it's because this is absolutely a cesspool in my mind of these negative thoughts. So, and that's something you can learn to control and have agency over. So that's pillar one. Pillar two, exercise. And so with this one, if you know, you know. It's basically, on one hand, endorphins, right? Endorphin production when you exercise, right? Endorphins make you literally feel good. So it's like, if you're feeling bad, you can exercise, and it's just drugs. Like runner's high, right? That's a real thing. Like, it makes you feel better, makes you feel good. And it's a huge lever you can pull. I also find that if you struggle early in the day on purpose, right? In the gym, running, doing some kind of physical exercise, and it's hard and you're ripping it, it really takes the edge off and the weight off a lot of the other things that you're going to have to deal with in the day that might be more negative or impact you more. But if you were already just like fighting for your life to get weight off your chest in the morning, right? Some of these other things just kind of slide off your shoulder a little bit, because the relative difficulty or negative aspect of them is next to how like hard you were going in the morning and how crazy everything was, and you're freaking ripping it or sprinting or whatever, it just seems like less. So it has this effect where if you're exercising constantly, it really takes the edge off of stuff in a beneficial way. You also have the added benefit of aesthetic. You're going to look better, right? If you exercise and you're healthy like that, you're going to look better, you're going to feel better, you're going to be more confident, etc. Boost your self-esteem. For me, huge thing. And it's not just how you look boosting your self-esteem, but I did something hard today. I was consistent. I did what I needed to do. You feel good about yourself. You start the day. I like to work out first thing in the morning. You start the day that way, and it just sets you up for success. Massive, massive change in my life when I started doing this. My rule is no 2 days off in a row, right? So I can go every other day if I want, but there's not allowed to have 2 days off in a row. Even today, the gym's closed for the next 2 days. I didn't work out yesterday, so this morning I'm running in the rain, and it's just no excuses, no 2 days off period, and that's enabled me to keep a lifestyle of working out for 5+ years, probably more like 8, consistently not missing 2 days off unless you're sick or injured. If I'm really sick or if I really hurt myself, I'll give myself a couple of days off to maybe heal or rest. But I still try to do some stretching or go for a walk or do something, but that's kind of my exception there. You can also think of this like if you're struggling and you're really unhappy in life in general, you could think, what did humans evolve to do? What did we evolve doing? One of the main things we evolved doing is moving around a ton, hunting, running, fishing, climbing, building shit, doing all kinds of physical things. And so if you're sedentary, your body's not doing what it evolved to do, and that's gonna result in a negative headspace a lot of times for a lot of people. And so that's another thing. Last thing on this is there are a lot of links between obesity and depression and mental health issues. Now, this is a bi-directional effect as far as I can, from what I learned, right? So you could just be really depressed and have mental health issues, so you end up getting overweight and unhealthy. But it can also be you're overweight and unhealthy, and that's causing a bunch of depression and mental health issues. It makes sense that a healthy body begets a healthy mind, right? Or vice versa, right? So you having a healthy body helps you have a healthy mind. Your mind and your body are inextricably linked. If your body is unhealthy and you are very unhealthy physically, it's not uncommon and it's not crazy to think that you're going to have bad mental health as well and be mentally unhealthy. It's not to say you can't be obese and unhealthy and still be happy. Some people are. But if you are really unhappy and you're really unhealthy, might be something to look at. That's all I'm saying. Okay, next pillar. This is also a big one. Diet. Okay? What you eat changes how you feel. Obviously. Your gut has a massive influence on your mind. Think about what a craving is. When you're having a craving, you're like literally wanting something or looking for something or trying to get something or feeling a need based on what your stomach wants, based on what your gut biome wants and is used to, right? And it can make you take action, right? It can make your brain want shit. So your gut has a massive influence on how you feel and your mindset. And it's just worth really paying attention to what you put in there and what you're eating. Also in this, I include substances and drugs, right? So this, for me in the past, has been a huge thing, right? I used to do a lot of drugs, used to smoke a lot of weed, drink, everything, smoke. And even for your normal person, you might be like, oh, I don't care because I don't do drugs. Well, dude, if you drink coffee, caffeine is a super strong drug. It's socially acceptable. We don't think of it like a drug, but if you're drinking coffee, caffeine, it's super addictive. And it's super potent, right? We know you drink a coffee, and woo! And so I personally, and I've seen other people be brought to their knees by caffeine withdrawals when they try to quit coffee. This whole thing in the morning, don't talk to me unless I've had my coffee. That's because you're in withdrawal, right? So these kind of substances, if you smoke, if you do nicotine, if you're drinking coffee, if you're certain foods have addicting properties. I know cheese and dairy can have really addicting properties. If you're feeling off, it's worth looking at that, right? A lot of times I'm thinking my life is horrible and I'm so depressed, especially in the past, and I'm like, oh, I just quit coffee a week ago, or like, oh, I haven't been smoking, or whatever, you know. Or you're overusing too, smoking too much weed, drinking too much coffee, etc. More anxiety. These things have massive effects, and sometimes if you're used to it and you're not paying attention, this could cause massive mental issues. Then that's only half the picture. The other half of the picture is your media diet, right? What's going in your brain? What are you watching? What are you reading? What are you talking about with people, etc.? This is huge, right? It's almost just as big as your physical diet, right? And that's why you're watching horror movies, you're watching crazy TV shows, you're watching really graphic stuff, you're watching really stressful stuff. You're just pumping that shit in your brain. And if your brain's like upset, depressed, sad, anxiety, whatever, you got to watch what you put in there. Then the other thing is, I would say if you're consuming anything you're consuming on a vertically scrolled feed, if you're doom scrolling, if you're scrolling a lot, it's probably 90% garbage, and it's probably having a negative effect on you. And if you don't believe me, or you think, oh, that's fine, I can handle it, try a cleanse, right? You almost don't notice unless you give yourself 2 weeks to a month of stop watching TV and podcasts and scrolling and doom scrolling, get off social media, get off everything. You don't necessarily notice when you get off, but when you've been off for a while and you go back on, you will notice it makes you feel sick. It's like eating healthy for a long time. I used to eat McDonald's and like fast food relatively consistently. And then if I'd go a period of time not eating fast food and eating healthy, I'd have Taco Bell or something and I'd feel like I was going to die. I was like, oh my God, I'm poisoned. Same thing with the consumption, right? You're watching a lot of podcasts, YouTube videos, all this stuff on politics, divisiveness, whatever. I'm saying just try. If you're struggling mentally, try to just cut that shit out. You'll see. I myself personally, I go on IG, I feel physically sick, and I know other people who share the same experience. I've been off social media, retired from social media for a couple months now, and a lot of these mental struggles that I would have, and darker times are nowhere to be found. And sometimes, even these days, I'll hear something rustling in the bushes. I'll get like a whiff of like the depression, or some being like, well, maybe you should just not be alive or something like that. But it's a little bit, and it's nothing that like a good night of sleep won't fix. Which brings me to my next pillar. Segue. Sleep, right? It's annoying to me and kind of pisses me off how much sleep affects your mental health, or my mental health, or how much it matters. And it's not just quantity, but quality. I know, like, there's all kinds of things like eating late, smoking weed, eating a lot of sugar, different things that you might get a good long night of sleep, but your sleep quality is severely degraded. So it's not just sleeping enough, right? It's how deep are you sleeping? Are you getting the REM? Are you getting the deep sleep, etc.? I have a Whoop, right? Tracks your sleep, tracks your deep sleep, everything. This has made these kind of things way more clear to me, right? Where if I eat food before I go to sleep, I can see and feel that my sleep is degraded, even if I sleep the same amount. Alcohol, dude, a freaking beer. I don't even drink anymore, literally, because one beer, dude, and my sleep I'm waking up in the red, even if I slept all night. So some people say, oh, I drink and I sleep great. Crash. Like, yeah, you'll freaking crash, but you're not getting the deep sleep that you need to rejuvenate your body. Everyone knows what it's like to not sleep good and be depressed. Woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Yeah, that's not sleeping good, and your mental health suffers. And then you pair that with you eat shitty, you didn't work out, something bad happens in your life, etc. And that's a recipe for a disaster. The thing I would recommend here, the thing I want to share, is this podcast by Andrew Huberman, will be in the description. 10 out of 10 resource for understanding and improving sleep. And honestly, when you get into it, sleep has pillars of its own, right? There's things like getting morning sunlight, not having bright lights in your eyes before you go to sleep, not eating before you go to sleep, what temperature it is when you're sleeping, etc. That make massive differences on this, that you can just not, once you know about them, you can pay attention. For example, when I was in Bali, right, wasn't sleeping that good. I was sleeping in a bunch. I couldn't wake up in the morning. It was so hard to wake up. Well, what I did is I started to go to sleep. You want it to be cold, right? So I would crank my AC to Arctic temperatures when I would go to sleep. But I would set it to turn off about an hour or two before I wake up. And it was so hot in Bali that by the time I wake up, the temperature was really hot, which helps you wake up. And I would wake up ready to go. I would pop out of bed in the morning like, it's not even hard for me to wake up. Usually it's like ripping off a Band-Aid, especially if it's cold. And just things like that completely changed my daily, how I felt on the daily, and how I slept, and how I felt when I woke up, and how much better I was able to kind of attack the day and get going. And it's the same thing with light in your eyes. It's the same thing with eating. There's lots of levers here to pull that have a massive impact on how you feel and your mental health, etc. Really changed my life. So those are the 4 pillars, right? And then here's the bonus, which is therapy. And there's a few other things I want to talk about here, but you could think of therapy as like a general contractor or like a handyman or someone to help you maintain your pillars in your house, right? And when I was going through this period of my life where I wanted to end it, like I said, I was confused. It was like a mystery to me. I was like, why am I so depressed? Why do I hate my life? Why am I so unhappy? And I couldn't figure it out, which kind of exacerbates the problem anyways. So I literally went to the doctor, like with my primary care doctor. And I was like, hey, I'm tripping. I don't want to be alive. I don't know why. This is really hard. What is the deal? Like, can I get some tests done? Like, I was just like trying to figure this out. And, he referred me to therapy. So reluctantly, I went, and it's embarrassing. It's like, you feel like something's wrong with you. I didn't want to go. I'm sitting in the lobby, like just embarrassed of this. Anyways, it was so good, right? I had an awesome therapist. A lot of this stuff, all these pillars, like she didn't give me this concept, but a lot of these different levers that I'm talking about within the pillars are tools and things she brought to my attention and helped me figure out and learn about and whatever. So it's like this big self-discovery journey of your body and your mind and how it all works and how things affect it. And therapy can be a huge tool to figure that out. And I got all my roommates going, I got my homies going, got everyone in therapy after that because it's really so helpful. And she eventually, my therapist had to move, so I had to get a new one. And I got this old guy, and his style and what he did was completely different from her. And he helped me in a completely different way, where he would just ask these good leading questions and then let me rant. And I would just talk and talk and talk and talk, and then he'd ask another question on it, and I would talk and talk and talk. And this was equally as helpful for me in a completely different way. And it just makes it so what I tell people when I recommend therapy is like, if you're not vibing with your therapist or it's not helping, try a different one, because there's so many different techniques and dynamics, personal dynamics you can have with the person, whether you feel comfortable or you don't or whatever, that really, can just make a difference. So don't just go to one therapist and write it off if it doesn't work. And at the end of the day, when I look back at those really hard times and I was struggling, it's so much more clear to me now why I was struggling, right? I'm looking at the times where I was really smoking a ton of weed, wasn't working out that good, absolutely horrible diet, horrible mental habits, negative about everything, always looking on the wrong side. All these different things I was doing that at the time I wasn't clocking that. Like, this is wrecking my mental health. This is wrecking the way I feel. All these things, especially combined, right? My roof is just getting heavy and caving in. And it's so much clearer looking back that was a lot of the problems that I was dealing with. And also, I will say, there's external factors. So it's not like, for me, if something happens, like a breakup, something, you get fired from your job, you have a really negative experience with a person, or whatever happens, these external factors that maybe wreck your mental health and make you depressed, not that you shouldn't deal with it, but at least like what the issue is, right? You're like, oh, I'm depressed because I got broken up with or whatever, and you can kind of deal with that and work through that, which in therapy also is a really good idea. But I'm more talking about these other things that are less clear, right, that may be affecting your mental health. Like if you just think you're broken, like, I'm just depressed, I don't know why. These are the kind of things that for me made the big difference. And also, if you have your ducks in a row with your pillars, when storms come and things happen out of your control that are external factors, you're much better suited to deal with them if you're already have a strong structure in place. And it's like the thing all the old philosophers and Stoics say or whatever. It's like, know thyself. The more you know your mind, how it works, what affects it, what levers are affecting it, and how to change them, the better you're going to be. So that's the thing. In closing, again, I just want to say this is just what works for me. I know I probably say it like, you got to do this, and this is how it is, and this is how everything works, and blah, blah, blah. It's uniquely just what works for me. And it's worked really good, and that's why I want to share it. I know people are different. You're in different situations. Things affect different people differently. Everyone's unique. So I'm not trying to make this sound like it's a fix-all for everyone or anything. But if you're someone like me, maybe this stuff can help. And I still am of the belief that these kind of 4 pillars, even if people aren't maybe really depressed and want to end it or anything, their life could be significantly better if they knew about these and were just clocking them and paying attention. And I think you probably have a lot of mental health issues and just suffering that could be alleviated by a lot of these. I found that to be true in my life, and I also know a lot of people who are in similar boats and have similar experiences as that. Also, it makes it so things that are maybe small, because of your view, if you view it through this lens, maybe small things like eating that piece of candy or having that beer or going to sleep a little later or sleeping in a little bit or being on your phone before you go to bed or watching a certain movie that's like a disturbing horror movie thriller, they might seem like small things if you're not looking at it in this context through this lens. But for me, when I look at it through this lens, these small things make actually a big difference, especially when combined, and it really changes the space that I'm making decisions in. And you can say no to things that maybe you wouldn't think were a big deal before, but now because you're paying attention, you realize that it can snowball and it can knock over other dominoes. Also, I will say that it's important to note that these things can take a while when you start changing them. It's not always like, oh, you just start going to bed on time and now you're going to feel all better. You just start a healthy diet, now you're going to feel all better, etc. a lot of times it could take a while of living this way and paying attention, and building new mental habits takes a while, right? So it could take a while for the clouds to dissipate. If you start trying to do these things and you don't feel anything different, just be patient, right? For me, one of the main things that got me through the darkest times for myself was just knowing it's like you get fed this lie by your brain that it's going to always be like this. You're broken. You're never going to feel good. You're always going to be sad. This is always going to be like this. And it's really like pernicious, and like it's really hard to like see through that lie that things aren't going to be better. But you got to know that, right? I always think of in Harry Potter when, I want to say Gandalf, Dumbledore has Harry feeding him the stuff out of like the shell or whatever. And he's like, you got to make me drink it all. I'm going to not want to drink it all, but you still got to make me. So after he starts drinking it, he doesn't want to drink anymore. And Harry's like having to force him to drink it. And I feel like I'm Dumbledore in that situation with getting through those dark times where I know it's going to feel like it'll never get better. And it's like really hard to move through that feeling of hopelessness, right? And I think that's why a lot of people end it, because it feels like it'll never get better, but it's just not true. And you just gotta say, I know it feels like it's never going to get better, and I know it seems like that, and I almost believe that in my core, but you got to just make it through and just know that you can actually get your shit together. If you're me. At least for me, that's how it was. Some people, like I said, some people literally might just need medication. Some people really might need serious intervention, and it's a seriously biological situation that just is irreconcilable by different choices you might make. So not everyone's going to be in that situation, but I think a lot of people are. And yeah, so don't give up. And then the last thing is, if this helped you at all, the thing is, send it to if you know someone, if it helped you and you know someone who it might also help, send it to them. Maybe get them on the path. And who knows, if someone's struggling, how it might help them or whatever. And then the other thing is, if you have any tips or thoughts or something that you figured out for you, or you think I missed something or whatever, please share it in the comments, because you never know who's watching, and they might read your comment and say, oh, I didn't think of that, or that's how I am. Like, the diet thing didn't work for me, but this XYZ thing did, or whatever. So feel free to share your own tips. I know a lot of people struggle with this kind of thing, and so if you have ways that you may be able to help other people, great. That's everything. So that's my walkthrough, and then now I'm gonna watch that, and I'm gonna see what was asked and make a actual nice YouTube video about it. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do this in the future for all my videos, but I think it is kind of a good way to kind of walk through everything and see. So that's that. Thanks for watching, if you were watching, and we'll see you on the video. And I would recommend you to check out my blog. Like I said, I have a lot of resources on there of a lot of these topics and things that I've thought through, etc. But yeah, we'll see you next time. Peace.